One of the most interesting that I have found is we own the trade rights for honey baking, right? So we have the ability to quote unquote honey bake anything, even things we shouldn't honey bake, as an example. Do you necessarily want a honey baked Jello mold? I'm going to say no, probably not. It may not work out. Uh, but it does create some interesting opportunities for things like seafood. Would you honey bake seafood? Maybe, maybe not.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Pierre Gamble. He's the Director of Strategy and Transformation at the Honey Baked Ham Company. Pierre, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kelsey. Thanks for having.
Yeah, excited to have you. So, Pierre, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. So currently working as the Director of Strategy and Transformation for the Honey Baked Ham. They're going through some big changes. Historic company, has a long-standing history in a lot of American hearts and hopefully mouths and households as well. And for me, my start, right, I started with GE a couple years back, got into one of their early leadership programs in IT, got to see a wide breadth of their industry. And since my time at GE, I've done a variety of different things, right? Did some fintech and insurance, worked as a corporate strategy consultant, and of course, my current role now. So
That's awesome. So, sounds like a great journey kind of leading you to the Honey Baked Ham Company. Tell me more about, the Honey Baked Ham Company and, how it got started.
sure, absolutely. So interesting story. The founder, Harry Hohenzoner, had a dream in 1924 about creating the spiral cut ham, and it was really an idea for the machine he created because prior to that time, people would go and buy a ham and they would manually have to slice it off, right? And if you've got a gathering of 10 or 20 people and everyone wants a couple of slices, quite a lot of work if you think about it. So with this design, right, effectively, he used a tire jack, he used a pan tin, and a washing machine motor and a knife. So, I mean, yeah, right, pretty inventive, right? And he strung this all together and made this machine, right, where you could stick basically a leg, right, of a pig, right, your ham, and you could turn it on and it would rotate it on the on the washing machine engine, right, and slice it. So
Wow, that's brilliant. That's so interesting to be able to, start with that technology and, look at where you are now, right?
absolutely leaps and bounds.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, aside from having this rich history, kind of what separates the Honey Baked Ham Company from its competition?
I would say a couple of things. One of the most interesting that I have found is we own the trade rights for honey baking, right? So we have the ability to quote unquote honey bake anything, even things we shouldn't honey bake, as an example. Do you necessarily want a honey baked Jello mold? I'm going to say no, probably not. It may not work out. Uh, but it does create some interesting opportunities for things like seafood. Would you honey bake seafood? Maybe, maybe not. And just to give a little clarity, I didn't even mention this. Honey baked is, if you've not had our hams or our turkeys, it's really this nice crispy glaze across the top of the meat that effectively is literally not effectively, exactly is blowtorched on with proprietary spice blend. So it gives us this crunchy glaze outside of the meat. So it's a nice combination of salty and sweet. So that's one of the real interesting things that I would say separates us from a lot of the competition, and that our products are basically premium, right? They're of the highest quality you can get outside of going to maybe Italy for some prosciutto, right? And we actually have a robust quality and assurance team of about 10 folks that go through multiple cycles with all of our ham products, and even monthly have a ham tasting, which I would say is akin to a wine tasting, which is so strange, but they go through and they smell and they taste different parts of the meat, and they have different flavors and varieties that they look for, smokiness, saltiness. So it's really, really interesting in terms of delivering that for our customers.
It sounds like, there's a very high threshold for the expectations of, the quality of the product that Honey Baked puts out.
Absolutely. I think if I remember correctly, only 8% or less of all hams viewed and sampled in terms of lots, right?
Yeah.
We'll take a couple hams from a large lot of hams, and then that's how we, base our criteria for quality. But yeah, something like 8% or less are accepted.
Wow. Wow. I thought you were going to say like 8% was turned away. So only 8% are accepted into production.
That is correct, and sold
Oh,
to
and
our end
distribution.
customers. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's a very strict, guideline in number.
absolutely. It's hugely important that, like any company, right, that we produce the highest quality products for our customers. And if we intend to stay a premium, or as a company that sells a premium product, you
Hmm.
have to have those stringent standards.
Hmm.
I mean, there have been years they've had things like listeria outbreaks and other unfortunate foodborne diseases, right? And having those stringent guidelines, I think, really has helped us throughout the years to greatly reduce our number of recalls. So
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. So, where can someone go to buy a honey baked ham? Can they find it in a store? Is there a honey baked store? Talk to me a little bit about that.
yeah, absolutely. So we have over 420 locations nationwide in the US. About half of those are what we call co-owned or company owned, and the other half are franchised. As well as we also have an online presence. You can literally get your any honey baked product shipped to, I think, anywhere in the continental US. So there's a lot of options there for you. And if we're not in your state, we're coming. So don't worry.
You're making me really hungry, Pierre. So talk to me, do you see trends in kind of who tends to buy the honey baked hams, anything like that?
Absolutely. So I'll try to be brief here because you just hit on the nail of a lot of analysis, right? That's still ongoing. But usually it's folks who are, I'll say, 30 to 50. They usually tilt a little bit older. And I think that's due to the high price, right? Because if you're starting with an entry level ham at $80, that's no small investment, plus the rest of your, holiday gathering meals, ideally, as well as every day. If you just want to buy ham for the week for the family, as an example. So it's a high price to start with. Uh, Primarily, though, we find that males are the purchasers, but our suspect guess is that their counterparts are the ones telling them to go and make the purchase. And I would say, if you think about our younger generations, they, as we are finding, are not necessarily the biggest purchasers. So that's something that we really have to work on if we want to stay alive as a brand.
Hmm. That's really interesting. So it sounds like, the Honey Baked Ham Company has, dove into recently a lot of the analytics and trends.
Absolutely. It's an area of growing maturity for us.
Mhm.
Interesting and surprising, it's not an area we've had a lot of strength in. Actually, one of my mini projects that I'm running is around exactly that, understanding our customer.
Mhm.
And so, we're looking at things like, where do you live? How often do you purchase with us?
Mhm.
Who are some people who may be similar to you in, ethnicity or age, right? These are all very important things. And I would say basic things a lot of companies do. It's just unfortunate that Honey Baked hasn't really given a lot of resource, time, and attention to that until now.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, well, it sounds like it's also one of those things, you are the premium quality. So, it sounds like you're making adjustments to continue to stay, the premium and the best of the best.
Absolutely. I think some interesting things we're doing though to reach customers
Mhm.
who are not necessarily the, older, high earning individuals, is to create things like sliders. We actually recently
Mm.
came out with a slider pack, a couple different flavor styles, right? And the intention there is that you don't have to go in and spend $80 to try out the product, right? You can go and get this ready, almost ready to eat pack of sliders. You basically pop them in the oven for 30 minutes, put some really delicious garlic butter on top. Can't
Ooh.
go wrong with garlic butter, right? And it allows you to try out, not just ham, but turkey as well. And,
Yeah.
and so I think in that way, we're trying to diversify our product portfolio, reach a larger audience, and allow people to, have something delicious, have something enjoyable.
Yeah. So you mentioned turkey. Do you do honey baked ham turkeys? Because I know there's the honey baked ham. Are there other different products?
That is a great question. And I will just be honest and say it's one of the largest things we struggle with. sentiment that you shared is exactly what the vast majority of our customers don't realize. We have a huge offering of products, over 500, in fact, which is very interesting to think about. Yeah. For example, we have ribs, we have pot roast, we have turkey breast, we have soup mixes, right? We have condiments, all kinds of things. Yeah,
Garlic
and
butter.
yeah, garlic butter, perfect, right? Yeah, so we do have a lot of products. We don't honey bake all of them, as we talked about. You have to make
Mhm.
strategic choices there. But yeah, we do have quite a few.
Wow, that's so fascinating. My stomach is growling. I really hope my mic didn't pick that up. Because you were talking about, ribs and everything like that. And I was like, wow, I bet that that's, a fantastic offering.
Yeah, absolutely. And same quality standards apply. We source from some of the, I would say, best producers and most tightly, what's what I'm looking for, like quantified and held producers in terms of their quality standards as well. We actually
Mhm.
will go on site to do checks of our providers
Mhm.
throughout the year. So
Oh, interesting, interesting. Pierre, what would you say the biggest misconception about the honey baked ham company is? Do you think it's that, there's more offerings than just the honey baked ham?
I would say yes, that we only provide ham.
Hmm.
I do think there's a lot more products that a lot more folks could enjoy. And I think that, that it's a traditional thing only for the holidays, right? Most people think of having hams, at least in America, only for Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, right? I think we're really trying to branch out into what we call everyday meals.
Hmm.
You know, you may not buy a ham for the week, that's fine,
Hmm.
but you could surely come by and spend maybe 30 or $40 on a, Friday night as a special for the family and get a quarter of a ham and, two sides, right? And
Yeah,
feed the family and have a really high quality meal that
yeah.
doesn't break the bank.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think you raise a good point that it's important to recognize that, you can do things like that and on a weekday, on a weeknight, and still, it doesn't have to be necessarily be a celebratory event. It can just be, having good food.
Yeah, absolutely. We are hyper seasonal in the sense that those holidays I mentioned is where we make the bulk of our revenue for the year.
Hmm.
Uh, and so by, I'll say spreading the load, if you will, of those ordering purchases, I think not only does it help us as a company, right, but as we like to think about it, we get to share something exceptional
Yeah.
on more times, more days of the year. So
Yeah.
that's what we really, I think, like if we had to have takeaways, right, take that away. So
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So, Pierre, as we start to wrap up this conversation, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, about the Honey Baked Ham Company, about your role, anything like that?
I would say that we've always been a quality company. We aim to always be a quality company, and we're growing, right? We're going to open up 30 or 40 new stores this year. We really have begun to modernize and grow a presence in California. And who knows? There may be an IPO down the road in a couple years. Don't know, but maybe. So leave you on a
That's
teasing
fantastic.
note there.
That's fantastic. Well, Pierre, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about, all of the different offerings that the Honey Baked Ham Company has and a little bit more about the inner workings, of your job, your role, and the company as well. So I appreciate you being on Business Ninjas today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Kelsey.